What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cadre Concept. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, here with your host, Shane McGraw.
Sometimes I want to go like this and just like see if I can like be pretty.
Those are some pearlies right there.
My kids make fun of me because I don't know how to be pretty. I just only know how to make faces.
It's like dad face. Dad jokes, dad face.
I'm the blunt of most of the jokes in my family. Does that happen to you at all?
I don't know if that's true or not for me.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't have any friends, and maybe
I think I am. I'll throw you a line. I think I am because I'm the goofy one in the family. So, but they just laugh with me. They just like think it's hilarious. So, unless I don't know if my wife thinks it's hilarious, but my kids think it's cool.
So, well, if your kids think you're cool, then guess what? You're cool.
That's all I really wanted in life.
I'm uncool. I'm the grumpy dad who wants to talk about 401ks while we drive, and
well, that explains everything.
Someday they'll be like, you know what, my dad was, that's where I got it. He beat it down my head. But right now it's like they'd rather talk about anything else.
It's so good. As a dad, you're investing time. You're investing time in your kids. You're not just serving time with your kids. You're investing.
Yeah, they're like, Dad, you say so much, it's like a word salad. You just like just out of your mouth and like saying right now.
I know, right?
Okay, so let's talk about investing because it's a good segue. I have been in this thought process for a while about money and time having a similar, if not commensurate value. And I think many would argue, especially when time, when they're faced with a decision in life where time is numbered. Where they, like my father-in-law, he is suffering from cancer. And so I could see it in him where I think he's starting to process the world through, I only have so much time left. And so I think the burger tastes better. I think the Seahawks making the Super Bowl was a big deal for him because he thought he may not get to see it again. The Huskies doing well, like all of his hobbies and things that he loved. It seemed like he gained a little bit better perspective or a little bit more sense of the time having more value. And me as an investor, I look at deals all day long. And when I look at these deals, I always kind of look at them the same way because I like to buy broken things that have potential, give them the love that they need. And the way I do that is I build a team around me of skilled practitioners, people who can do roofs and people who can do framing and people who can do, tile and electrical and plumbing and landscaping. And I get all these together and I kind of say, hey guys, we have a common mission. I have this much time and I have this much money. I want to accomplish this much work. Can we do it? And then what I do is I partner with people who say, you know what, Shane, I want to do that. I want to partner with you. I will own this part and I will get it start here and I'll end here and I'll do it for this amount of money. And then I look at that as it relates to the deal and I say, well, man, does that work? And if it does, I say, great, let's go. And what I realized is when I first started doing these investments, I do this with commercial buildings. I do this with residential buildings. I do this with land. I do this with a lot of things. It's the same formula always. And I was writing with one of my mentors a while back and I asked him, I said, I had kind of an epiphany and I said, sir, if I was to think about all the stuff you've been teaching me as it relates to investing into, fixed assets like residential real estate and anything, I'm kind of a residential person. I do everything based on the leverage of a building or a house. Whether or not it's a business going to live in it or a resident's going to live in it, that's kind of where I spend my time. Just kind of where I accidentally fell into. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to invest from like a standard investment. You can go to a stock guy and you can invest in stocks, and you can go into a tech world and you can invest into tech startups. And you can invest. Every single thing in this world really is an investment. And I'll get to my point, but I want to kind of give a little bit more like things for you to wrestle with so that I can get the audience to relate to what I'm about ready to say, because I wanted to find them. So if you're listening, I want you to find yourself in this storyline somewhere so that you can relate to the content I'm about ready to give you. At the Cadre Concept, my goal, my thing is the Cadre Concept means gathering a group of highly skilled people together, having a common mission, and then going together with relationship in the center, recognizing that the left hand and the right hand each have their value. I pull a lot of my reference from farming and from the biblical reference of, God being the vine, we being the branches, every person having its use. If you're called to teach, teach. If you're called to preach, preach. If you're called to serve, serve.
Mm.
We all have a mission in this world to do something with our time. Our time is not our own; it's each other's, and it's matters. Which is interesting because if you're ever on a plane and you're looking down at the world, you realize you're just not that significant considering what's there.
Mm.
But yet we could be so significant even as we're insignificant, and we can impact the world. It takes one man to invent a white light bulb that changes the world. It takes one man to invent Facebook that connects the world. I mean, one man, one woman, one movement, one group of people united to solve something can actually impact everybody, good and bad. And I talk a lot about how we invest our time. It's kind of, you are the sum of your disciplines. You are the sum of the people you hang out with. You are the sum of what you do regularly. So if you read, you become smart. If you don't, you don't. And so it compounds. Whatever you invest your time in has an investment multiplication piece to it, and it gets bigger and more abundant. So the question is bigger and more abundant, is that what the goal would be? My argument is hell yeah. Not just yeah, but hell yeah. Because I think that there's something about like having purpose with your day that kind of gets you out of the center of the story. If you recognize that there's this greater story being played, you're able to take yourself out of the center, look at the equation from a tactical mindset and realize the role that you play and not be so emotionally dependent on approval, collaboration, being accepted, being attractive, fitting in, being well articulate. Like all those things can go out of the way if you understand one thing, that we are investors. All of us are investors, and we are in the people business. We're not in the fix a house business. We're in the get a bunch of people together and help them all use their skills collectively and collaboratively to reach a common outcome. And then with that outcome, everybody gets to win. And it's not a win-win for everybody. It's, does the gospel win out? And the gospel, Christian or non-Christian, the gospel is we were put on this earth to work in collaboration. That's what unites us all. Otherwise, what's really our purpose? Why would, the ancient scripts talk a lot about whatever you do to this person, you've done it to me. If you serve this person, you've done that to me. And it talks a lot about how we're all connected and we're all wired together. And what we do to others fills our cup. When we invest into others, we get the fruit of that investment inside of our hearts. So I've been really on this thought process, Chris, trying to figure out like, okay, so about a year ago when I had my aha moment and I went from being, making $1 million a year, doing something that for all intents and purposes was working just fine, to pivoting and becoming an investor into people. I've had a hard time figuring out how to take that phrase that I just said, though simple in nature. For me, it was so complex. For me to take myself out of the center of the story and figure out how to be productive and results oriented and multiply and help others with my skill, but in a way where I recognized that my skill wasn't designed to make a house better. It was to bring people together to make a house better. It's to have a common goal or objective. So I started thinking about when you have purpose, it gives you a pace of life. So I want that to set in. Once you find a level of purpose, and let's be super clear, today you're not the same guy you were 5 years ago. What drove you then doesn't have to drive you today. But the lessons you learned then can be tools in your tool bag today, and you can your purpose will become clearer to you. So I have kind of a maturation process I've written. I'm not a speaker where I go from point to point and navigate it all eloquently. I just have some thoughts that I want to try to send out to the world, and I want each of you to put it in your pocket and say, I'm going to chew on this for a season. And I'm going to try to apply it in different areas of my life and see if it has validity, and see if this investment has a compounding effect for me too. And so I don't know who you are or where you are in your life or what you're dealing with, but I think we can all agree that the people business is hard. Everything else is kind of easy. You know, it's not hard for me to enjoy the fact that there's a beautiful body of water surrounding me. It's not hard for me to see the trees and to experience the sunshine and the heat on my skin, and, you know, the seasons that we're in. You know, there's every one of us get a winter. Every one of us get a spring. Every one of us get a fall, and every one of us get a summer. We all get it. We're all part of this thing that happens, and it happens regardless if we're participating or not. But what makes all those things kind of have purpose is our role inside of that, inside of this cyclical nature. You know, in order for something to have new life, it has to have a the world needs people like me to buy broken houses and fix them, because I fix them and I give them to families that make them their home. And I from that home comes life. It becomes parenting, it becomes mentorship and training, and new puppies and new babies and new experiences. And it's got a dinner table in it where the family gets to eat together and have meetings, and it has a front room where they get to enjoy a movie. There's some stuff about creating an opportunity for someone to live there that impacts the world for good. And oftentimes I take the ugliest house in the best neighborhood and I make it the nicest house in the neighborhood. And what's interesting to me, Chris, is when I do this, what do you think the neighbors do when I fix my house?
They want to fix up whatever's going on in their house. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
And a lot of them will come and knock on the door and they'll be like, hey, I noticed you're putting in a fence. Could I talk you into putting a little bit more fence and I'll pay you? Or someone will say, man, I noticed you got a new roof. Who did your roof? Could they do my roof? Or they'll say, hey, have you seen the broken house down the road? You should fix that one too. Because they want their neighborhood to grow. And sometimes the neighbor next to me, I'm looking at this house that I have, and the neighbor next to me on the left, he's been there for 31 years. He served our country. He's a UPS driver. He's got a big family, and he's been in the house forever, but the house looks like he's never fixed it. You know? And I talked to him and he's like telling me about all the plans he has and all the things he's doing, but he hasn't done anything like at all. And I want to go, hey, I don't really care about your thoughts, because your thoughts, you're not acting on them. And then I come home one day and he is acting on it. He's put new bark down. It's a small act, but it's something that says, hey, I caught the bug that you were doing over there, and I want my yard to look good. I don't want to have a beautiful yard and mine be the ugly one next to it. It inspired goodness in me.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so going back to the root of this thing is we're all investors, every one of us, no matter what we do. And when we invest well, we create a multiplier, an effect where people, it's contagious. If I'm on a weight loss journey and I'm losing weight, people will say, Shane, you look skinnier. And then it gives me an opportunity to be like, thank you. I received that. It's a blessing. By the way, do you want to know how I did it? Because I want other people to have what I just received. I feel better. I look better. I'm more vibrant. I think I'm better as a father. I'm better as a husband. When I'm healthy, you know, looking at the 7 pillars, the health pillar, when I'm healthy, it affects all the other ones. And so I realized that as I invest into myself, as I invest into being a student and a learner of the game, that investment becomes contagious and it draws people who are on that journey to me. And then that's where the fun starts. You draw people to you based on where you're putting your time. So if you're a Coke head and you're doing Coke, you're going to draw Coke heads to you. Have you ever noticed that?
I have not personally noticed that, no, but I can totally get what you're saying.
Oh, you've never been a Coke head?
No, not in this lifetime.
It'll show you how uncool I am, because I think Coke is so yesterday, and I think there's new drugs that are much cooler.
Right. Yeah, right. You dated yourself there. That's right.
Sorry, I'm an old man. Let me slow this down and let's make this relatable and something that people can put into practice. What's been really cool to me, Chris, is, you know, me recording these podcasts. I don't have a plan. I don't know exactly what I'm accomplishing here. And every time I try to be a little bit more structured, you encourage me to do the opposite, free flowing. And I appreciate that, by the way. One person thinks it's funny.
It's where the good stuff lives.
I run into people all the time. Like, you know, my get to formula, how I always talk about, you don't have to, you get to.
Yeah.
Just switching the word patterns. And every time you say I have to, or I'm forced to, or whatever, you can switch the word pattern and use the word get to, and it turns everything into an opportunity instead of the opposite. It's an investment rather than a serving of time. And a lot of it's mindset. Well, I had in 1 week at least 5 people like make jokes at me that I didn't know they were audiences of this podcast. And I was moving the sandbag and the guy goes, "Hey, let me help you with that." I was like, "Oh, you don't have to." He goes, "I get to, Shane." And I was like, "Wait." Goes, "Yes, I listen to your podcast all the time." I'm like, "Really? That's so cool." Like,
awesome.
and I was thinking to myself, well, you must have nothing else to do. But he turns out to be an amazing man, and he's plugging in and learning. I don't know if he's like, subscribing to every one of them, but we drop one every Tuesday. We dropped one today called Humility and Courage, and what the value of those things are. And I've been thinking a lot about investing. So I wanted to give you guys like a little formula that I kind of just scratched down. I don't know that it's perfect, but it's the big building blocks of something.
Yeah.
So purpose gives you pace, and pace gives you clarity, and clarity gives you courage. That's just my thoughts. I don't know that I'm sure there's better ways to say it, but if you have purpose, it gives you pace. If you have pace, it gives you clarity. And if you have clarity, it gives you courage.
Can we unpack it a little bit?
I think so. I'd like to.
So give me the first part of the equation is purpose.
When you find your purpose, it gives you pace.
So pace. So if I'm just trying to think about my own life. What's that?
Go ahead. Or tempo, like pace is like.
Yeah, totally. I can think of when I feel like I'm probably in the season of life where I've had the most sense of purpose. And I'm 43, which feels like late to the game, but maybe it's on par. I don't know. I feel like a lot of my life was spent searching for that purpose. And in the space of searching, the tempo was very frantic. It was very, it wasn't even a tempo. It was like all over the place, right? It was like fast, slow, slow, fast, 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 slow, slow. Like it was just all over the place. And in the middle of all that, it was very hard for me to make sense of life. So like pace leads to what? Pace leads to, what did you say?
Purpose leads to pace.
And pace leads to?
Clarity.
Clarity. So right. So when I started to have that purpose drop in, and my pace started to be lined up with the purpose, the enacting of the purpose, I started to notice say it one more time, what pace leads to?
Pace leads to clarity.
Clarity, yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. Like you can have this sense of purpose, which is the broad stroke, but clarity is the specifics inside that broad stroke. And I think purpose gives you that tempo, and then inside of that tempo, things start the details of it start to appear. Does that make sense? Like that's where I feel like certainty comes from.
No, I think everybody can respond to these words kind of the way they receive them. I think words have a lot of power and a lot of dynamics to it. For me, how I respond to these, my goal with this podcast is to get people I want to punch them in their proverbial face and make them go, "Hey, I'm going to question my programming. I'm going to question where I'm at today, and I'm going to ask myself this question." Andy Andrews has this thing that he says that I'm paraphrasing, maybe even breaking it, but he's a wise man. So if you ever want to get wise, read things that wise men wrote. Man, I think a lot of people don't read enough. It cracks me up how many people don't read, because I didn't read a book until I was 24 years old. I read I cliff noted and scammed and skimmed and cheated and whatever I could to not take the responsibility of actually learning something. I would learn enough to get a result that the teacher prescribed for me, but not enough to put it in here and use it. And as I became older, I became addicted to learning. So what I do is I study buckets. And, in those 7 F's, those 7 pillars that I talk about, I study fitness, and I study faith, and I study family, and I study friends, because I know that all those things are perpetual. And as I have the ability to have purpose in researching and learning about those things and challenging what I know, Andy Andrews says, if you go into the world with a question, you'll come away with one of 2 things. You'll affirm that your answer is right, Because, you know, most questions we think we have an answer.
Mm.
It's just the way we work, especially if it's an open-ended question like, Chris, what's the meaning of life? Well, you may not have that on the tip of your tongue, but I think the meaning of your life is it's in you.
Yeah.
But someone has to ask you. And sometimes if you were to sit down with a pen and try to write the meaning of life according to Chris, you'd be like, okay, well, you would have a hard time getting it to go from here and here onto the paper.
Yeah.
But if I come to you and I look you in the eye and I have a moment where I say, Chris, what's the meaning of life? I think you could stumble into a version of where that is to you today. And then I think later on you can go, do I actually agree with that? I do or not. So if you go into the world with a question, you either get it answered and it confirms where you're going, or it gives you new data to alter your course based on the new information you just learned. And then your question takes a different shape because now you have some depth to your question. So if you set your eyes and your trajectory towards solving a question, what is my purpose? As you filter things through your, is this my purpose filter? Or does this resonate with me? You're going to pick up little things and you're going to go, okay, I have a question and I like that. I'm going to stick that in my pocket. I like that. I'm going to stick that in my pocket. I can talk to a guy who's really heavy in the physical world, and he could say, if I asked him what his purpose was, he might lean towards his purpose based on where he puts most of his time. He might say, I just feel called to be in amazing shape because when my body is in shape, my mind is in shape, and that's where I get my fuel from. Someone else I go to and I say, hey, what's your purpose? And they'll say, well, I'm a family man. The more I surrender and serve my kids and my wife, the more it fills up my cup and the more it affects everything else. Because I'm a husband, I don't smoke. Because I'm a dad, I stay in shape. Because I'm a family man, I want to manage my finances. Everybody kind of has their, of the 7 pillars of purpose, they have something that they resonate with. So when I go in and I ask a question, I'm kind of drawn towards one of those. Like me, I like everything that relates to money. Not because I'm money hungry, but because I like quantitative things. I like to be able to do A plus B equals C. I can understand that. That's how my brain hears and feels things. So I think a lot of us will come from these different things. And so when you have an idea for purpose, it gives you a sense of pace. Like me, I want to have purpose around being wise. I just believe that, the wisest man of all time was Saul. And he went to Jesus and said, Jesus said, you can have anything. What do you want? And he said, I would like to have wisdom. And then with that wisdom, he spent a lot of life being people would say the richest man in the world. And when he got done, he had all the things that you could ever wanted. And he took, his takeaway was, he wrote a whole book on it. And he basically said, I believe there's a bunch of wisdoms that I've learned along the way. All of them fall underneath the umbrella that everything underneath the sun is meaningless. Meaning you can't get what you need from the world. You have to get it from here and here. It's not what you have, it's how you receive having it. It's a mindset. So the purpose, in my opinion, is your head and your heart being in alignment with who you are and what your role is in the world. Well, once you do that, it gives you a sense of pace, a sense of mission. You have somewhere to go, so you have some intentionality about it. Your steps have more action. Your steps, you have a pace towards getting you from one place to the other. And is this coming out okay, Chris?
Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
So now I got some level of purpose where I may not have the answer, but I know what it's not, right? I think as we go out and seek into the world, we find answers, and we may not be able to go, okay, that's it. I don't need to learn anymore. We just go, okay, I'm on the right track. I either gained something new or I verified where I'm going. I'm going to keep going with my pace. And then when my pace kind of starts to have a compound effect, meaning I'm putting my foot in front of each other at a higher rate because I have a little bit less of this and a little bit more of this, a little bit more of a straight path. All of a sudden, I get a level of clarity. When I get a fork in the road where I can go left or right, I have a natural modality, a bit of a philosophy that I've started to create as I seek out with the world what I'm looking for. It gives me a fork in the road, and I know how to take the left quickly or more quickly than I did before because I have some experiences and some things in my tool bag that have led me to be able to compass my path better. So I think the more purpose you understand, the more pace that you have. And I think that pace moves into a sense of clarity.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that I'm learning, and I think you can say this in response to your 43-year-old just starting, in my opinion, and this is only my opinion because I'm just now stepping into this 40s.
Yeah.
I think that the 40 years, the 40 to 50 bracket, that 10-year period, I think are the most significant and impactful years of a person's life. Because I think 20 is your accumulation phase. Like, I don't know what I don't know. Oh, crap, I need forks to eat. Oh, I need a vacuum to clean my carpet. Oh,
Right.
I have to have pooper scoopers. I didn't know that. I just thought I could get a dog. And, people have to accumulate. And then about their 30 mark, they start to make more money. They start to get to a point where they have some intelligence. They've been to their job for a little while. They maybe graduated their college and they found their path a little bit. They've probably gotten married at this point, had some kids. And, when you kind of roll the corner to go into your 30s, now you're like, okay, I'm not going to respond to the world as much. I want to get something from the world. That's people start saving in their 30s, like 3 or 4 times more than they do in their 20s, because they're starting to go, okay, I got to start thinking about tomorrow instead of living for today. 30s change your mind. And then for me, as I navigated my 30s, I kind of found out not who I wasn't, but who I was. And then now that I'm rolling into my 40s, I really am enjoying my days because I just know with a sense of clarity what I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not so worried and I'm not so waving around in the wind trying to be accepted by others, or I'm okay saying no to an opportunity because I just know that it's not for me anymore. When I was younger, I'd be like, sure, opportunity, let's try it. I don't know what I don't know. I've never cut hair. Let's try that. You know what I mean? But now I'm pretty sure I don't cut hair. That's just not my thing.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm really glad that someone does because I have hair, right? We all have a role. But as I kind of navigate things, I understand that my purpose leads to a pace. My pace leads to a level of clarity of what I'm not and what I am. And then once I have clarity and a little bit clearer path of who I am, I think that's where courage and humility comes in, because I'm not so worried about what you think of me. I'm more worried about being responsible for the decisions I make and knowing the matters of my own heart and my own mind, because that's where I win and lose, is in my own heart and my own mind. Your perception of me will always find me falling short. It's just the way we work as people. If we live on approval from the world, we will live an empty life filled with lots of shallow holes where we're going to get to the bottom and realize, oh, that wasn't it. Oh, that wasn't it. I thought Johnny told me I would feel this way if I got here, but I don't.
Yeah.
And I think I ran into this equation when I about a year ago, when I was doing well from the world standards, but my head and my heart were in total turmoil all the time. I could never figure out if I was greedy or if I was mission driven or if I was a horrible leader or if I was a great leader. I just couldn't decide, because what's the measure of a great leader? Someone who gets lots of results. Well, I got lots of results, but I didn't feel full. So let me simplify this math equation and give someone something practical. Wherever you are, if you don't know your purpose, which is a huge word, you may not know your purpose, but you know what it's not. Start there. Start there. Like, I'll tell you something I know for sure that's simple. I know as a married man and a father that my purpose is not things of a single man. It's just not. I don't need to be in bars drinking because I chose a path of having a husband or having a wife and having kids. Therefore, I no longer get to subscribe to the philosophy of a single man because I'm not a single man. It's that easy. Anybody who would, oh, well, I deserve things for me. No, you don't. When you became a husband and a father, that's your farming ground now. That's what you do. Every day you have to water your farm. Otherwise your farm will fall apart. It just is what it is. So yeah, better not say that.
It's good though.
So in simplicity and in application, I'm going to stand up just randomly for no reason, and then I'm going to sit back down because I was challenged by my friend Chris that I couldn't do it, so I did it.
That's great.
Okay, so let's slow down the pace and let's have a conversation for a minute about how you can take a bunch of information and apply it. So the kind of title of this podcast is, are you investing your time or are you squandering or serving your time? I like the analogy of prison because I think it's a really simple way. Prison has a lot of shapes, Chris. I would say someone who has, an incredible amount of obesity, there's parts of the world that are not afforded to them. Like they can't jump on a bike and go for a ride because their body doesn't, engineering wise, it doesn't work. They're
Right.
too heavy.
Yeah.
Or their knees can't handle it because they've been beating their knees for years. That's a form of a prison. It's not a prison you can't get out of. Thank God you can change that today. But every day you spend in a space where you're not your best version of yourself like that, it is a prison for you. And so everybody has their own prison somewhere, whether or not it's fear or pride, which is, in my opinion, what causes prisons.
Yeah.
So you get into a prison because you're too afraid to change, or because you're too much pride to change, and you get stuck in this mindset where you're serving time. And it's not voluntary. It is voluntary because you chose to be there, but at some point the prison sentence is too hard to get out of, and most don't have the courage to get out of it. That's why I ended with courage and humility, because with courage and humility, everything follows that. But you have to get to a place where you have the courage to change and the humility to do the work inside of yourself first and not blame it on anybody else or force it upon someone else. So everybody has this idea of we all have prisons that we subject ourselves to. Some of us actual prison, where I have this guy I know, and I won't tell too much because I didn't ask his permission, but he was an alcoholic and he'd had lots of DUIs, and his last DUI resulted in killing of somebody. And he went to prison. And he badly hurt some people, and he just got out recently after 6 years or 7 years or something like that. And he found God in there and changed his ways and read some books and like kind of really engineered his life. And he's writing a book about what he went through. And still to the day, you can hear he will always wear that. He took a life, and he fractured a family with his poor decisions. So that's going to be his to carry. But he's turned it into something where he's found some purpose out of it, and it's given him some pace of life. He's got some time to make up. He's trying to go from here to there because he's squandered some time. In your prison, wherever you're at, are you squandering time? Is it time to, find some purpose that'll give you pace? If you find the purpose, I love the weight loss thing because it's every one of us in America, we struggle with obesity. It's just a thing that we have because we have food in abundance and we partake in abundance. And we have gas stations and we have quickie marts and fast food joints on every corner. And we don't want for much here. It's America. We're very lucky here. And I think a lot of people lose their purpose when it's afforded to them, when the things of life are afforded to them too easily. So he has this pace now. My friend has a pace because he did something wrong. And one of the first things he wanted to do in his pace is he wanted the opportunity to sincerely apologize to the family that he broke. And he writes about on Facebook and different things about how he just wants the ability both for them and for him to just create a crack for a new seed to grow. And not that he wants forgiveness, but he wants to take ownership and let them see that as a man he took ownership for his mistakes, and that he won't waste the time he's given going forward, even though he took something from them. I think that's pretty courageous.
Yeah, big time.
It started out with him getting clarity on his purpose. And then once he had purpose, he started to have pace, which means he started to consume information so that he would be equipped for his mission, if you will. He started trying to figure out what this, when you're hungry, you'll find food.
Yeah.
And then that pace gave him a sense of clarity. He started to realize that some of the programming he had, some of the things that led him to be an alcoholic, some of the decisions he made, he had more clarity on, those things anymore. And he lost an appetite for the things that made him the worst. He made him a bad version of himself. And so he started with sustaining and not allowing those kind of things to be part of his life. And as he did that, he gained clarity, which allowed him to take that clarity and develop a little bit of humility because he had to accept his role in the equation, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in your marriage, if your marriage sucks, if you're unhealthy, if you're not a good friend, if you're not a good family member, if your finances suck, if your faith sucks, if any of these 7 pillars of purpose are broken, having a little bit of clarity would help, don't you think?
Yeah.
And then with that clarity would come some courage and some humility to make a change inside of yourself to see something grow. Well, people, when I talk about this, they'll ask me, Shane, how do you become successful? And I'll say, become a man worthy of success. Because this is the process. You have to find a level of purpose that's not with you in the center of it. And then you have to, when you find that purpose, it'll give you a sense of direction, a pace, clarity. And then as you find the clarity, and you'll know the forks in the road that lead you to where you're supposed to be instead of where you're not supposed to be. And you'll recognize the consequence of, partaking in that fattening food, because that'll compound over time. And you'll instead of going for the hot dog, you'll go for the vegetable, right? Like you'll learn to pick the better thing. And then courage will come out of that. Have you ever hired a trainer before, Chris?
I have. Yes.
Did you get more results than you do on your own?
Absolutely. Big time.
I wonder what the equation was that led to that. I wonder if it was because you had the courage and the humility to surrender to someone else who was better at this than you and allow them to give you shape. Here's what happens when you start with humility and you know your role with your trainer. Your role is to show up and do what you're told. That's the humility. And then you do it for about 3 months, and all of a sudden you're like, Coach, I showed up before you and did a little extra. You start to develop a little bit of courage, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of ownership. But it starts with that thing is you got to surrender yourself to the idea of, and the humility of aligning with people who can help you. And so to wrap all this up and to give you guys why I'm so in love with the idea of a cadre concept, it's because I believe that all the answers will lead you back to people serving people. Everybody has a role to play. We're all supposed to be helping others and receiving help from others. Whenever you want to be part of a relationship, you have to give something and you have to receive something. Otherwise, half of the equation, if you're giving and you're not receiving, then it becomes unequally yoked. And before you know it, your back hurts and you've had enough. It's interesting in my marriage how many times I've had an opportunity to be the one that's doing the carrying and the one that's being carried. And the fact that I'm able to grow my character in both spaces. But the way I grow my character is learning to surrender to my wife, who's my partner in this thing. Because I recognize oftentimes what I'll say when we're in an argument, I'll say to myself, Shane, we're fighting for the same thing from a different angle. My wife doesn't want to have a crappy marriage, and neither do I. She wants to have a vibrant, healthy marriage. So when I get mad about something that's not what I want it to be, and then she gets mad in response, we're fighting for the same thing. We're just not fighting together for the same thing. So my job as the husband is to go, okay, wait. I know her to be a good woman. I know her to be a most high character. I know that she's someone who I align with and she makes me better. How can I submit to her in this area so that I can have the courage to enter into that vulnerable space where I'm not in charge, and the humility to do the work inside of myself so that I can come out of that season, that prison I was in that area, and have an investment to be made in the world. Because now when I talk to you or someone else, I can say, hey, this may not work for you, but I gained something out of my last season. Now I can invest it into you. Maybe I spoke too much today, but I'm hoping that people will take away from this podcast just a simple thing of starting where you're at, having the humility of courage to do something about it, but you got to work backwards to find your purpose, because that's where it starts. And I think if you don't know your purpose, it starts with, let me eliminate the things in my life that I'm not. And then what's left is a good place to start for purpose.
It's beautiful. I think you did a great job of bringing that. You started with great context and you brought it down to the formula and then brought it home. I thought you crushed that. You crushed it.
Thank you.
No word salad, just
word salad.
Just all truth. Just all truth. It's good, man. I think this
I
is
have
an
a shirt
important.
made that says, I love Jesus and I cuss a little.
It's awesome. I love it.
I have this puppy. Have you met my puppy yet, Chris?
I think maybe you showed her to me last time. Is she down there at your feet right now?
We did my podcast about every prideful man should buy a puppy, right?
Yes, that's what we did last time.
So let me show you my puppy.
Yeah, yeah.
Puppy, come here. You'll notice I don't have to bend very far because she sleeps at my feet because she's my little girl.
Tell me her name again.
Her name is Remy.
Remy.
Remy, and she's a little princess, huh? Say hi.
Hi, Remy. That's awesome.
You know what's cool about dogs is that you can't be selfish. You can be, but they'll make you own it because they'll just keep loving you no matter what. And you're like, man,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
a horrible human.
That's awesome. I've had those moments with my dog for sure.
All right, Cadre Concept. Do life with people. It's hard, but it's worth it. It's the best investment you'll make. Get out of your own way. Serve other people. Business
Yes.
work.
And I think it's always good to just invite everyone to go to cadreconcept.com, take the assessment. Like this, it talks about the 7 areas that you just went through. Find out where you are right now. I think sometimes going through those assessments can actually give you access to purpose. Like when you're clear what's broken and what you're not, but then your assessment reveals to you all the things that you say you're not, but that you actually are, right? Say, I want a good marriage. And then you're rating yourself a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. It's like, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm committed to something else. I have a different purpose and I haven't been living in that. So don't hesitate to go take that assessment.
Yeah, I love it. We revamped it. It's sexy as heck right now, Chris.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's really taking some good shapes. I'm really pumped about it. All
That's
right.
awesome. Good stuff. Thanks, man. See you next time.